Welcome to the FYBS Playbook. Guess what? Here's something nobody will put into the parenting books. You're going to lose it.
Mm-hmm.
You will say the wrong thing, shut down at the wrong moment, or react in a way that you will regret almost instantly. And your kids will remember it. Not forever, but right now.
That's tough. And in a classroom, it's even more complicated.
Sure.
Got 24 other kids watching.
Just do the math.
Can't stop and repair in real time the way you might at home. But the repair still has to happen. And it matters just as much.
Okay. So what we're talking about today is what do you do in those moments? It's not about how to avoid them. It's what you do after. Welcome to the FYBS Playbook. We're exploring 3 ideas around this idea of rupture. And to get us started off, let's get right into idea 1. It's all about relational breaks. Those ruptures, those eruptions when the big feelings come our way, either as the grown-up or the kid, that happen definitely across all ages. And what does the research say about their function? So to start our conversation, though, we should probably just reframe what do we mean by rupture, right?
Sure.
And so it's like that argument, the yelling, and what does that actually mean? Because it's not a sign that your relationship is broken and things are awful, right? It's a feature that's just real. That's real life, no matter who you are.
Absolutely. And what's most important when those ruptures happen is what happens afterwards, the repair.
Okay. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. And so there's a framework we got from the Kids Mental Health Foundation that can help us to think about what we need to do in those moments when we need to repair. They call it the 5 C's.
Okay.
So build connection.
Yep.
So we'll talk about what that can look like, but playing, talking, labeling feelings, building family belonging, a sense of community.
Sure.
The second C is consistent rules and routines.
Okay.
So, routines give children a sense of control, and so it can reduce those power struggles and battles that we might encounter.
Okay.
Clear instructions. So make sure we have the child's attention. I know how many times it feels like we aren't being listened to, but maybe we didn't get attention first. Keep it simple and tell kids what to do rather than what not to do.
Okay.
We're all guilty of this. Stop running. How about walk? Or, one foot in front of the other. The 4th C, practice co-regulation and coping skills. So modeling how we calm ourselves, stepping away, showing ourselves coping and regulating. And then finally, caring for yourself. So we have to engage in some rest and reconnection to be able to do this effectively.
So that's a lot. Let's just go back. So we've got connection, consistency, clarity or clear instructions, co-regulation, and caring for yourself.
You got it.
So the Kids Mental Health Foundation is saying those are really critical things, especially in those first 5 years of life, right? So if I do that as a parent, and I do it all the time, and I will be perfect and everything will be perfect.
Nothing's ever going to be perfect.
Of course not. Okay. But that 5 C's frame can help us with language to think about how to understand where things are breaking down in that kind of emotional behavioral picture. So could you identify where you have the most flicker of that eruption happening, right? So is it me or is it them? So if I think about it, if I think about me as the caregiver, maybe it was the lack of clarity instruction. When I say, just do it, right? Versus I need you to go and get the green, whatever. Okay, so that could be me. Or it could be me because I could also be I'm really angry and I did not sleep at all. And I have no ability to be consistent and clear.
Yep.
And then, so that's me. And then sometimes it could be the kid too, right? So maybe they're also angry. And didn't get enough sleep and their routine is disrupted. And so that could be another reason why we're seeing that. Okay, so that sort of makes sense to me, but most importantly, I guess, is when we get through that rupture, when that eruption, that argument, what do we then do to reconnect, right? Because building the relationship is the foundation that we have to keep all of the rest of it from crumbling. Because you're going to mess up in the other stuff. But we need to make sure that we've got that foundation of connection.
Yeah, and so that's when we move to repair. And so I think the first thing to clarify is repair is not the same thing as an apology.
Okay.
So an apology is words. I'm sorry I did that. But repair is really a re-regulation event. And so we're reconnecting. We're bringing the child and the caregiver back into a sense of connection.
All right. Does that happen at all ages?
Sure does.
Okay. What does it
So
look
let's
like?
talk about what that looks like. So as a toddler, it might be getting down on the floor and following their lead for 5 minutes, engaging in their play or, kind of engaging in parallel play with them.
But not telling them what to do.
No.
Just connecting.
Following.
Okay.
Yeah. With a 14-year-old, it might be knocking on the door and really leaving a note or, saying pretty much very little. But letting them know
works really well with 20-year-olds too.
Sure.
Okay. So the examples we've talked about have been really home-based, like me as a parent. Why don't we look at what that looks like in school? Teachers understand, I think teachers and educators, school psychologists like myself, we understand the concept of connection, that relational bank account. Like you can't expect the kids to do all the things that you're asking them to do and 25 of them all at the same time if you don't have that bank account of we're going to end this together and we are here and we're going to help each other grow and evolve. So, we understand that every time I have a positive interaction with you, I get something into my bank account with you, right? And deposits.
Yes.
And that way, when we do have those ruptures or there are eruptions and things are coming out of that bank account, hopefully there's enough in there to keep you going. Yeah, definitely balance. Because those educators that have that strong bank account or with that strong relational bank account with their students, as well as your peers, your colleagues, right, can survive a really bad morning, a really tough morning.
Yep.
And, when I was a school psychologist, particularly in the alternative settings, it's the ones that are running on empty that I really worried about most. And so a lot of what we did to prevent educator burnout was really among the colleagues, because these were tough kids to build those banks with. And so we needed to really rely on ourselves as colleagues and that could use that. This was a really tough morning in so-and-so's classroom, and find the humor, for example, on what happened at the end of the day. Just to regroup for 5 minutes before we went off home could help us reset and recharge ourselves. So it works for grown-ups just as well as it does with kids.
You've talked about those laughing in the hallway moments before.
I don't think we'd be here today, that's for sure. So that's really idea one, right? Is this idea that we need to have, first of all, mistakes are going to happen, and those arguments and those anger and all that stuff is going to be there, but we need to have relationships and as the foundation. Yeah.
And engage in that repair.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to move to idea two. Idea two is that repair looks different across the developmental span. So what works for your toddler is not going to work for your teenager.
Or the 20-year-old necessarily,
or the 20-year-old, right? But we can...
Or your significant other or your colleague.
Fair.
Okay.
But there are, the research will say that there are different strategies for different developmental timeframes and
different themes, though, that are consistent across.
Yeah.
Again, around those 5 C's, the 5 C's still work
in relationship
across ages. They just look different.
Yes.
Okay.
You got it. So let's talk about what it might look like with young kids.
Okay.
So for young kids, we're going to slow down. We're going to get curious, validate their experience. We might be using feeling words. Really trying to understand what their experience of it was. But then if you've ever tried any of those things with a teenager, you know that you probably got a door slammed in your face or a scoffed off, upset teenager who really just felt confronted by.
So you don't say to your teenager, "Oh, are you feeling ouchy right now?"
Oh, no, that's not fun.
Probably not, right?
No.
Okay. So the different actions that you have can misfire in different ways. That's what you're saying for toddlers who don't have a language to engage in the conversation that an adult is having if it's not the right level. I laugh at myself a lot because I think about how I thought I was such a great mom and a great school a great mom and great school psychologist, right? Thinking about we did this point jar, this jar at home, and with my oldest daughter, it took a long time to figure out that when she was saying, "I'm behaving," she was saying, "I'm behaving." not behaving. We weren't putting it together. And it was like one of those like aha moments, like, oh my gosh, I teach this to people, but I missed that myself in terms of like understanding where we are. Well, I don't know about that, but yeah.
Yep.
So how do we deal with these repairs?
All right. Well, I think if we understand the cycle of escalation, we become much more equipped to step in with the right strategy.
Okay.
So the cycle of escalation will say, we want to be in a calm space. That's the ideal. But then something inevitably is going to happen.
That's where those 5 C's were, right?
Yes.
So that's how you're building, like, in the ideal world, we're always in this calm space of connected and
going about our day.
Had all the sleep we need in the world.
You got it.
Okay. But that's not reality.
That's not reality.
Okay.
So something's going to trigger us, whether it's lack of sleep, a sharp comment.
Person who cut you off at the grocery store, on the line. Okay.
Okay. And so now we're feeling some agitation, starting to feel a little out of sorts. Then we might accelerate. So this, we at any point we can return to calm if we kind of get off the off ramp. But if we go the full cycle, we're going to accelerate. We're going to hit our peak. That's when things are the most either aggressive, whether verbally or physically.
You're thinking of the cartoon with that.
Yeah,
the
smoke coming out of your ears.
Yep, yeah,
that's where we are. But then we do get over that peak into de-escalation and finally into recovery. So we've got this, climb this hill and come back down the other side.
Okay, but what does that mean for a caregiver?
So knowing where the kid is in the cycle can really help you to know how to respond. And we're going to give you those strategies now.
Okay.
Because if you step in with the wrong strategy at the wrong time, it really can either further escalate it or send them back into the cycle.
So the rupture continues and the repair does not happen.
You got it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can give some examples from school with this. So when we try to repair too soon, it can actually send the kids back into agitation, and then we go way back into the cycle. And so, we tried to use those feeling words too soon, tried to talk through what happened, and it just, spirals again.
Tried to debrief and talk about what was going on when they weren't really ready to do that.
Not ready.
I've seen that plenty of times with kids, literally. I remember being a student still learning, and I couldn't get this kid to get off the floor in the hallway, right? Because it just wasn't ready.
Yep, exactly. I worked in a school where so often other adults would try to help. And so, maybe there was something happening in the hallway, and an adult would walk by and try to, completely well-meaning, but try to step in and redirect the kid or whatnot. But it actually hurt more because they hadn't seen the whole situation. They didn't know where the kid was, or maybe didn't have the full understanding of the cycle. And so we ended up making a school-wide, among staff, expectation that unless you are asked to help, you just carry on.
Just ignore it, walk by.
Let the adults who are involved in the situation handle it, because they're using their best judgment about where it's at. And then if you're asked to help, great. But otherwise, carry on, because we saw it backfire too much.
Can you talk a little bit more, though, about how this works across different ages?
Yeah,
okay.
For sure.
Because I feel like
that's
those waves are all going to be really different.
Yeah. So with toddlers, we're going to want to repair before we bring any language into it. So, help them, you're getting down on the floor, you're engaging in some play, maybe they're shaking.
Body first, language second.
You got it.
Okay.
Yep. So that's what's going to work for the littlest ones. For school-age children, we want to be really brief and concrete.
Okay.
So if there's something to fix, let's fix it. Then we might need feeling briefly, but then we're going to move on. So it's kind of a process and in and out. Yep.
Okay. And what about those teens?
So with them, we really want to go side by side. So maybe we're walking next to them. Not on the floor, but maybe next to them, maybe in a game of basketball. Why?
Because when we're facing at them, what happens?
That feels confrontational.
Okay. So that's a threat.
Yes.
Versus walking side by side.
Yep. We're partnering in this. And again, it's, we're not asking for a response. We're saying our brief piece and then moving on.
Okay. So that's development across different ages and the different actions that you might do in different parts of that wave. But I think the challenge is that the waves are always different, right? Your waves are not the same. You're much calmer than I am. Everybody's waves are different. And it also depends again on those triggers, right?
Yeah.
Like some things like totally set you off, but
Yeah.
some things don't, right? And so the hard part is trying to figure out the cycle that looks different for everyone. It's based on who you are as a person, the situation is, and it's really like riding the waves as the caregiver isn't really about knowing how to surf really well, right? Or just getting on the board anyway and jumping on. It's not just jumping it on and kind of going for it. There's a lot of other things you have to be reading, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And there's no such thing as like perfect caregiving school or perfect surfing school, right? When you go to surfing school, you're learning all these different things like wind conditions and characteristics of the wave and knowing how to like engage with other surfers. Like I think I'd probably run into everybody, right? So there's lots of different things that are going on and the waves are all different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And so, we've got kids who are verbal, kids who are nonverbal, some who have self-awareness, some who, maybe don't.
Between us, we worked in a lot of different settings, right?
Yeah,
to see
I think we've seen
all the kinds of waves. Yeah.
And then we have kids that don't have that relationship bank, either with us or in their families.
I didn't think about that. So they don't have a bank of being in that calm phase.
Yeah.
To lean into.
Right. And then, maybe some unrepaired ruptures in their life. And so, they're going to be more sensitive to these ruptures. And so that's when those 5 C's can be so important for us as adults to lean into, figure out.
So we think of those 5 C's as really that foundational piece of the 5 things we need to kind of be looking at and paying attention to when we're getting into those waves and ruptures.
You got it.
All right. So closing out idea 2.
Yes. So we know those first 5 years are so important for kids for establishing that foundation of emotion regulation, but it's really never too late to work on that with children.
That's really important, right? To know.
Absolutely. And your caregiving repair skills, those can always be built. It is not too late. Every interaction matters. And so every time that we grow and adapt our skills to navigating that escalation is going to benefit the kids in our lives.
We need to be really good detectives, I think, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so let's move into idea 3. And that's like, what does repair look like across different kinds of settings and activities, right? Because kids don't just live in a vacuum of one little bubble. We've been talking a lot about examples for parenting.
Yes.
A couple school examples, but parenting. But let's dive in then to what happens when the caregiver has to deal with that whole team or a class to understand. You know what? Before we do that, though, let's just first stop and give a huge shout out and a pause and a credit for the work that those caregivers do, because they're navigating a whole lot of waves all at the same time.
Oh, my goodness.
Right.
Yes.
And I think that sometimes we don't stop for a second and understand the importance of those roles. Like I know me as a parent, I feel like sometimes I could barely navigate. So I don't even imagine what it's like when you are that more short-term person in somebody's lives, but you've got a whole lot of those waves coming. So, what we do know, and we say, rail and rail and rail about this, is the research is super clear, is that the expectations about kids' abilities and their skills absolutely affect what's learned. So it's really absolutely astounding. Things like expecting kids can improve, giving them feedback, engaging interest, and emphasizing progress. Those are so important to be able to figure out how to navigate all those waves. So I just want to stop for a second and just give a big shout out and credit to those people. But maybe let's dive in for a couple of minutes to an example that comes from coaching, right? So a coach can be really intense, really demanding, even loud with players. I think we've seen that particularly over this past season in some spaces. But if the relationship bank, going back to that bank, is full, that strategy or those strategies of that kind of loud and intense demands can work, and athletes can tolerate and respond to those challenges with those when those expectations are high with those behaviors. But those strategies like really backfire when you don't have that foundation of connection and trust and that bank. If you're constantly comparing an athlete to another athlete, or instead of focusing on, hey, I know that didn't work out the way we wanted it to, but, get back at it. Those types of situations, that type of intensity can really be a threat. And as a sports parent or kid who had a lot of kids in a lot of different sports over the years, I certainly saw examples of what wouldn't be great coaching examples. Sure. And I've seen really great ones. And I want to give a quick shout out to Coach Parker, middle school basketball coach, who, on the outside could look really gruff and really intense and and what the expectations were set for basketball. But kids responded to her, and she knew, because they knew underneath it that relationship bank was really there.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to understand. So kind of pulling that back together, it's like cross-setting repairs are just as important, and the conditions that make it possible or impossible to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about those basketball players, if you rupture on practice 1 or game 1, I mean, you've got a whole season together in that child's, trajectory with basketball or sports in general. And then if we think about it in schools, you might add an institutional dimension. So what happens? Do you mean? So let's say, kind of some of the more extreme examples of rupture is when a kid's been suspended or expelled or sent to the office or excluded from the classroom. And so that's not really just a student-teacher rupture. It's really bigger than that because, those kids have been maybe embarrassed in front of their peers, taken out of learning for some amount of time, might be feeling ashamed or resentful if they don't, necessarily agree with it. And so reintegration is going to need to look even more careful there. And so that will usually fall to the teacher, even though it was kind of an institutional decision. But when done well, I think goes back to those 5 C's, really takes extra care and intentionality to be responsive to how the student experienced that.
So we actually had those conversations just a few weeks ago in the training that we were doing with paraprofessionals on this cycle of escalation and helping them understand their role when they didn't necessarily feel like they were in control of all of the decisions that were going around in the school environment. But at the end of the day, they have the kid with them for that 30 minutes and with a goal of what they needed to accomplish. Yes. And so we talked a lot about what do those repair strategies look like and what they can control and do to make sure that we fill that bank as best as we can with high expectations for that kid to allow them to be as successful.
Yeah. We had one pair share an example where the child needed to be a middle school or high school student needed to be escorted from room to room based on some prior transgression. We don't know. And she was responsible for doing that escorting, and the student was not happy about it, really felt babied or, that they were being unnecessarily watched. And so what were her strategies for making that, a more pleasant experience for the student and getting through it together? And so, she talked about walking side by side and, really kind of partnering
there goes that student. Side by side again versus
partnering with the student, letting them know that, this was a time limited thing and that they were earning their way back to independent.
But if it was a toddler, you'd probably be holding a hand.
Oh, goodness.
But we wouldn't be doing that in high school. Right. Yeah. So again, back to looking really different.
Yeah.
And again, I think we've talked about this in our other episodes too, is that I think one overarching thing to remember in all of these conversations is that caregivers across settings can do this work a lot better when they have a common language and the credible solutions are embedded where they are. The roles and rules, home versus school or after school or extended relationships, and all of that confusion that we talked about in other episodes also extends to repair, right? So parents don't always know what repair looks like in school or don't understand it. Teachers assume that the repair might be happening at home, but that may not be the way that kids are happening. And coaches operate in a totally different or separate or siloed relational place entirely. And so again, I want to go back to feel your best self is really addressing this confusion really directly, because it's a framework for navigating big feelings, to recognize how you're feeling, reflect on what you could try right now. What could I try right now to help and respond by choosing some type of strategy sequence that could be used as part of that repair process. So it's used in the calm moments, right? And it's used to build our skills when we are calm, and teach and learn, but it also can be used in the repair moments. So like, let's say I'm the parent who lost it.
Sure.
That's what's going to happen, right? And maybe part of that recovery and repair, and when we're ready to debrief, when we're not escalated anymore, is to say, hey, I wasn't feeling my best self earlier. I was being way too stormy, when I slammed the door or when I yelled too much. And so if that happens again and I see that, maybe I'll try a strategy that could catch myself, catch it before it gets too stormy. So like, one of my favorites in those examples might be something like turn the dial, where you're looking at something and you're getting upset about it. I think in our video, we do it with Nico's outgrown their sweater, right?
Yes.
And so Nico's getting very upset, it doesn't fit, and blah, blah, blah. Again, you could take it to my kids colored on the wall.
Sure.
Right?
Didn't get into their first choice college.
And what we're seeing. But if I turn the dial, I can turn and look at the situation from a different perspective. So maybe the coloring on the wall was to make me a beautiful picture because they thought the house could be more pretty or decorated, right? Like, yes, we still have to fix the behavior. We need to correct the action. Not saying that we color all the walls and just embrace it, but we can kind of look at it a different way. And before we escalate or before we flip out, we can regroup and take a beat. Or if I do flip out, what we can do in the repair is then talk and model about, hey, I wasn't feeling my best. I was too stormy. Next time, maybe we'll try to do this. Right?
Well, good modeling. Yeah.
You have an example?
Yeah. So, so often when teaching, we would share out loud, the strategies that helped us, and kids learn to prompt us for them. So
that's funny. That's good.
Yeah. So, I need to take a minute. Mrs. Kaz, why don't you take a minute, or take a deep breath. My 8th grade English teacher would have this person sat in the front row, tell me to count to 10. She would crawl into her podium and count to 10. And
crawl into the podium.
The teacher did. Yep. But having that shared language with students.
We had a tent for the kids used to play in. I wish I'd done some of that myself.
There. My daughter has one of those now. But yeah, having that shared language allows kids to notice when we're getting a little stormy and prompt those same strategies. And if we share or model our own regulation, it can be particularly effective in showing that this is a lifelong skill. This is something we're all working on at different times.
All right. That's great. So let's put a wrap on idea 3. And it's like the importance of understanding repair across different caregiving roles and bringing consistency to the places where kids are. For every caregiver that's listening out there right now, they're somewhere in this cycle. They're somewhere in the cycle. So let's hear what they're navigating, and let's jump into the questions from our audience. What do you think?
Sounds great. All right. So the first one is from a parent.
Okay.
It says, my 8-year-old goes completely silent after we fight, just shuts down. I try to talk to her, but she won't engage. How do I repair with a kid that won't let me in?
Ooh, that's a good one. Happens, right?
It does.
All right. Well, why don't we start by taking a beat on that and thinking again about this turn the dial strategy, and instead of thinking about it as an act of defiance or they're trying to make it matter, right?
Sure.
How about if we think about the silence as information? We turn and look at it and say, this is information. So, and we can frame that then that an 8-year-old who's quiet after conflict might still be in a physiological response. The body hasn't returned to that baseline calm yet, right? Yep. We're already we're still up here somewhere in the wave, even though you might want it to be done.
Yeah.
Maybe we're not. So even if it looks like it out there, maybe it's not. And I have to say, I think this is one of the things I've been most guilty of as a parent is pushing too early to talk, because I'm a fast person, as you know, and step in and plenty of examples I can think of where it's been really counterproductive for both of us, because both have to, or all in this classroom, right, have to be ready. And sometimes it can start that escalation all over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it comes from a place of wanting to fix it sooner, but...
Yeah. You know, I'm seeing that now, like I'm watching season 2 of, what's it called? Your Friends and Neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a mom in this that actually is a therapist. So I'm just surprised that this is what we picked, but they've picked this where she's in these conflicts with her daughter, and she's just not giving the time for the de-escalation to occur, which I guess is why it's drama and fun TV to watch. But it kind of breaks my heart a little bit when I watch it, because I see that.
Yeah. Well, they also often say, you know, it's the hardest thing to teach your own kids, or to, you know, the therapist with their own, you know, it's just a different ballgame sometimes.
Sure.
So, but, you know, the biggest takeaway I see there is that it's the caregiver's response. We're not focused on, you know, the daughter shutting down. We're focused on how the caregiver can respond.
Okay.
And so, you know, really, you're not trying to avoid the repair, but take a beat and, you know, sit near her, offer her a snack, put on a TV show she likes, you know, just offer that warmth and comfort without really any language until she shows you she's ready. She'll let you know. And then, you know, keep it really simple. I got too loud earlier. I love you. That's it.
Ooh, that's so hard for me. That's so hard for me. Okay. Let's look at question 2. This one says, I lost my temper with my 16-year-old last night, and I said a lot of things that I regret. He's barely talking to me right now. So what's my repair move?
I think this has happened to a lot of people.
Okay.
So we've talked a little bit already about what to do with teens, and really to avoid that feeling of confrontation, that kind of face-to-face. And so they experience that as threat. And so even if your intention is love and care, and so we want to repair it indirectly. So you might make his favorite meal. You might,
that's a good one.
Leave a note on his door and knock, let him find it. You could ride somewhere together and just put their favorite radio station on.
Or playlist. I think we're dating ourselves now. But yes, I got it. Okay. So that's for the now moment. Yes. Right. And then at some point, not today, maybe not even tomorrow, right? We could be ready to debrief on that and say something like, hey, I said some things that weren't okay. I'm sorry about that. Again, apology is an important part of that. Yeah. Stop. Don't add the but at the end. Right?
Don't get to explain?
No, you don't explain or rehash the situation. Because as the adult and the caregiver, you're not asking the teen to manage your feelings.
Yes.
The buts ask you to do that. The goal of what we're trying to do is repair the relationship.
So the bigger goal here.
I think so, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Those are great audience questions, Jess. How about if we get to our one takeaway back to Feel Your Best Self?
You got it.
What have you got?
So the takeaway for today is that relational bank account is real. And every moment of repair, no matter how imperfect, is a deposit into that bank account. You don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to do it. I think that's cool. And really, it's all of that work in the smooth moments and the calm part that prepares us to deal with those rough caregiving waves. They're coming no matter what. Yep. But the more we put into building the smooth moments and being ready for that, we have more currency
withdrawals that we can make in that bank account. And really, that's really what Feel Your Best Self is all about. It's like working together. I mean, it's built so it's not go watch this and just do it on your own. It's about doing it together with your friends, with your coworkers, with your other moms, or whoever that might be, to build the skills to navigate those big feelings. And that's really all about recognizing when you're not feeling your best, reflecting on what can I try right now, and responding.
Great.
So to wrap up the episode today, it's all about we break, we repair, and then we're going to break again. It's really not a failing relationship. That's a working one. And that's what life is about. So what you're building every time you come back to is the evidence that you were always coming back. That's what your kid will carry forward.
I love that. And for the adults in school buildings listening to this, your students are keeping that evidence too.
Yes.
Every time you show up after a hard day, after a hard moment, you're depositing something that they're going to use long after they leave your classroom.
That's for sure.